afternoon, everybody. I'm Joyce Taylor, and this is King 5 Plus. The man who shot a Washington State Patrol trooper in September of 2022 is going to be sentenced in just a matter of minutes. We're going to bring it to you live from Walla Walla when it happens. 40-year-old Brandon O'Neill of Walla Walla pleaded guilty last month to first-degree attempted murder and attempting to elude police. You might remember that he shot Washington State Patrol Trooper Dean Atkinson Jr. in the face in September of 2022 after being evicted earlier that day. Trooper Atkinson drove himself to the hospital, where he was then airlifted to Harborview in Seattle. He returned home weeks later after undergoing several surgeries. We spoke to Trooper Atkinson after his recovery. Here's King 5's Drew Mickelson.
Tell me how you're doing.
I'm doing good. Just taking it a day at a time. Just trying to kind of be with the new normal.
You can't blame Trooper Dean Atkinson for being a little camera shy. His arm is hidden.
I lost part of my left ring and middle finger.
And he doesn't want to show the side of his face where he got shot.
It's been really overwhelming the last month.
It was September 22nd. Atkinson was parked in his marked State Patrol car on a Walla Walla street when a man walked up and started firing.
Is the injury?
Atkinson, after being shot in the hand and face, started driving himself to the hospital a mile away.
I passed a perfectly good fire station, and they're really good at what they do. But right when I was about passing the fire station, I realized I was a little more injured than I thought I was, so I knew the hospital was probably the best chance.
The man accused of the shooting, Brandon O'Neill, is set to go on trial on attempted murder charges in November. The day of the shooting, police evicted O'Neill from his Walla Walla apartment, where police say he had made threats to execute any cops who evicted him. Atkinson had nothing to do with the eviction. Today, instead of being angry, he's focused on his recovery.
I feel better as each day goes on. Like, I feel like I can do a little more.
Throw 3. There you go.
We first met Atkinson when he was a cadet at the State Patrol's Academy in 2017.
It's hard at this point. It's hard to stay into it, I guess, mentally.
He says that training kicked in following the shooting.
Our motto during the time was, I will not quit, I will not die, I will survive. That we had to say it a lot.
Serving his community was nothing new to Atkinson, who followed his father into the Washington National Guard right after high school to help others.
That's more than just like helping, and yeah, when people are in need, it's always enjoyable knowing that you're contributing to make their life a little better.
With plans to get married next summer, despite what happened, Atkinson wants to go back to patrolling the state's highways.
I don't want to rush it or anything like that. If my hand's not ready to go back to work, I'm not going to push it, but it'll be more of a when I go back to work, not an if.
I think a lot of people would say he had a close call. He almost died. He got shot in the face. Why would he want to go back to that line of work?
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of family, I know my fiance probably thinks that. I mean, really, a lot of it is I don't have many other skills. I know how to be law enforcement, and I want to do well in the bank. I'm not good at math. And
Drew Mickelson, King 5 News.
That sentencing just now getting underway with victim statements to take you live to the courtroom.
You would be healed both physically and mentally. That you would be able to go back to being a state patrol. To God be the glory for the miracle that only He could do. To the Honorable Judge Johnson, thank you so much for all your patience, and thank you for your discernment. We, the family, ask that you look at Brandon before his mental illness. He is so very loved by his family and had never been in trouble with the law. He just lost his way. To the naysayers, Brandon is truly mentally ill. 7 studies, psychiatrists all agree that he is ill, and he went to Eastern Hospital. He finally got medication, and now he recognizes me as his mom again. I did raise 4 boys all by myself. Brandon being the youngest. Thomas is the oldest. He graduated from ITT Tech. Nathan graduated from Eastern University with his Master in Business and Bachelor's in Electric Engineering. Justin also graduated from Eastern with his Bachelor's in Computer Science. To Ms. Carlson-Stroh, I want to tell you thank you for all your hard work and for the biggest heart to serve and protect different walks of life. You have a big job, and thank you so much for all you've done. And our family comes from a long line of veterans. Robert Kennedy Sr. did 4 years in the Army. Robert Kennedy Jr. did 4 years in the Army. Matt Kennedy was in the Vietnam War. James Kiger, my youngest brother, did 32 years in the Army. Philip Ency worked for the Walla Walla Police Department back in the 70s. My mother, Margaret Ency Knudsen, worked here at this courthouse for 25 years. So again, we're so sorry this happened to you, and we're so thankful for the miracle that God provided.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Are there others who wish to address the court?
Your Honor, Nathan O'Neill and Justin O'Neill both submitted letters, and I understand from the family that they understand the court will have read those, and that is their statement. There may be one other family member, and I opened it up for that to take place. Other than that, I believe that LC was capable of.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Carlson-Straub. Are there any other members of Mr. O'Neill's family who wish to make a statement? Appearing not. Ms. Procetta, are there members? It's my understanding that Trooper Atkinson, well, there were statements included in the PSI. The court has reviewed those. As I indicated before, the fact that the statement was submitted does not preclude anyone from making these statements here and now. So I'll turn it over to you.
Your Honor, it's my understanding that Trooper Atkinson does wish to address.
Trooper Atkinson, I know who you are. For the benefit of our record, can you please state your name?
Yes, Your Honor. My name is Dean Atkinson Jr. Your Honor, first off, thank you for allowing me to speak today. On the evening of September 22nd, 2022, my life and my family's life changed that evening. Granted, I'm standing here today thanks to the incredible medical care from St. Mary's Medical Center as well as Harborview Medical Center that provided the care necessary for me to be standing here today, and I will forever be in their debt. And law enforcement, it always says that any traffic stop at any time can turn to disaster in any moment's notice, which occurred to me that day. What could be called a simple speeding infraction nearly cost me my life, and by all accounts it probably should have. But with a tremendous amount of luck, that wasn't the case that day. As I drove myself to the hospital and starting to realize the severity of the situation I found myself in, noticing the blood all over my uniform, I started fearing I would not survive. I remember telling medical staff at St. Mary's Medical Center, please don't let me die at least once that I can remember. Shortly after this incident happened, my family was informed that I was injured, and I can't imagine the fear and pain that they felt in that very moment. I also can't imagine what my family felt when they first saw me when they walked into the St. Mary's Medical Center. I assume they informed me that there was a chance I wouldn't make it through the night, which I've been told by medical personnel that was very highly a possibility. Family members of first responders should never have to receive this phone call and experience anything like this to happen to them just because their loved one was performing a career that they love to do. After this initial incident, I was released from the hospital and my recovery had officially begun through various physical therapy forms. Again, thanks to the doctors and physical therapists, during my time with them, they were able to get my body mobility to the best that I can. However, there are permanent limitations. Thanks to them, they are minimal. There are permanent hindrances due to the injuries I sustained on that September day, but with their guidance and help and understanding from the Washington State Patrol, I was able to take the necessary time to properly recover before being allowed to return to duty as a trooper, serving the Walla Walla area once again. It's easy to say that being a first responder, at work every day, there is no guarantee we will make it home to our families. And that's what haunts me the most about this and being a simple speed stop, where the outcome would not have just been an infraction, merely more than likely just a written warning or a verbal warning. My biggest thing and preach to you would be is just to watch your speed because it was a busy time of day, so that way others would not get hurt. If we could have had a conversation about whatever struggles you might have been going through, I actually had several business cards, now bloodstained, with many different individuals that can provide relief and assistance thanks to my time serving in the Washington Army National Guard during the COVID pandemic. Meeting and working alongside these resources gave me a lot of contacts to assist others if brought to my attention. But instead of having this conversation, you decided to try to kill me for some reason. And for that reason, wanting to kill me will never be known. Because of your actions leading to the trial, I started having nightmares on a regular basis over the incident, losing numerous nights of sleep and being more anxious at work, causing my productivity at work to dip. I'm very thankful for the many witnesses that assisted law enforcement to find you. And thank you to the law enforcement officers that took you into custody with absolute professionalism, knowing what had happened to me. I'm very thankful for all the people that had the courage and strength to ensure that you could not hurt anyone else that day. Today, you will be held accountable for your actions, and that day you will not be able to threaten or hurt innocent people for a very long time. I want to say thank you, Gabe, and your staff for all of your hard work, patience, and resiliency through this process, and thank you, Your Honor, for overseeing this process.
Thank you, Trooper Atkinson. Are there any other submissions to be stated?
So, Your Honor, I believe Dean Atkinson Sr. would like to
Ms. I'll also ask you to please state your full name for the record.
May Atkinson. Bear with me, I'm not a public speaker. On September 22nd, 2022, my husband's life and his family life and my own changed forever. My husband, a Washington State Trooper, was shot 5 times in our community. I remember the call, a call no one should ever have to answer. The words, "Dean's been in an accident," still echo in my mind. I wasn't told what had truly happened at first, but I'll never forget the panic in my chest and the silent drive to the hospital. And the moment I arrived to see the patrol car parked outside, little with bullet holes in the driver's big door, at the level where his head should have been, the door smeared with blood. Then I saw him lying in the hospital bed covered in blood, connected to tubes barely recognizable. That image will stay with me for the rest of my life. He was life-flighted to Harborview Medical Center where he spent 12 days fighting for his life. When he finally came home, I thought the worst was behind us. But in truth, it was only the beginning. For months, our home became a recovery center. I watched him struggle to do the simplest things, to eat, to talk, to move. I watched him through the agony of physical therapy, pain of multiple facial surgeries, and the heartbreak of learning to live without 2 of his fingers. Every day we spent hours cleaning bullet wounds and using a device to pry his jaw open caused by the scar tissue of the wounds. I sat behind him, holding back tears as I watched the man I loved, one strong, confident, and full of life, brought to tears by pain and frustration, and an unexplainable emptiness in his eyes. I tried to be strong for him even as I was living inside. I had to leave nursing school and put my entire life and future on hold to care for him. We lost more than time and money. We lost peace, a sense of safety, and the life we once knew. Even now, years later, the emotional wounds remain. Every court date reopens them. Every time I sit in this courtroom and look at you, I feel the same ache in my chest. You sit there with your head down, no emotion, no accountability, and no remorse. You changed our lives forever. My husband will carry the scars in his face, and his hands, and his heart for the rest of his life. And I will carry the memory of that day and everything that followed for the rest of mine. The impact of your actions did not end that night. For the trauma, the loss, and the lifelong damage you caused, I respectfully ask this court to impose a full sentence. Justice demands nothing less. For my husband, for our family, and for every law enforcement officer who risked their life to protect others.
Thank you, Ms. Atkinson.
Dean Atkinson Sr. Brandon Dennis O'Neill affected our family more than you will ever know. On September 22nd, 2022, he was intent on taking the life of the first law enforcement officer he encountered, which just so happened to be Dean Atkinson Jr., my son. He picked the wrong guy that day. Dean took Brandon's cowardly assassination attempt and threw it back in Brandon's face. After being gravely wounded and fighting for his life, Dean put his loved ones first and did everything in his power to survive that day and always come home. Dean is a husband, a son, a brother, an uncle, a son-in-law, a soldier, a role model, and most importantly, a friend that everyone's path he comes across. He is also the toughest man I've ever encountered. Most men in this situation that day, including me, probably would have never made it to the hospital. The site of the attempted execution is no more than 500 feet from where Dean played Little League and youth football for most of his childhood. Dean started off with T-ball and progressed all the way up to the majors in Little League at the VA Little League fields. He was supported by family and friends, and many lifelong friends along the way, of whom many are seated in this room today. The site of the attempted execution near the VA on Popular Street is a constant reminder to me of the pain and emotions our family went through. I imagine someday I'll be sitting in the bleachers watching my grandkids playing Little League at the VA fields, and will struggle to stay focused, knowing that nearby our son nearly lost his life because of Brandon's actions. I avoid Popular Street as much as possible since the attempted murder to avoid reliving that terrible day. The mere thought of Brandon wanting to kill our son solely for the profession he chose brings chills to me. The emotional roller coaster we lived through, not knowing if our son would ever be able to live a normal life, took its toll on our family as well. Dean carries permanent reminders of that day and will someday need to explain to his kids and grandkids that why he has scars and dismemberments all because of Brandon. In no way whatsoever is Brandon's actions worthy of leniency. The message that needs to be sent to Brandon, as well as any other individual contemplating killing another human being because they don't like their choices in life, must be extreme. In some countries, the crime Brandon committed will be punished by the victims in a retaliatory manner, Sharia law for one. Brandon would be subjected to the same crime in which he did to Dean. Knowing how much of a coward Brandon is, I doubt he would live through the same scenario he put our son through. Unfortunately, those punishments don't exist in this country. One of the reasons they don't exist is due to our Constitution. Dean is a defender of the Constitution in his role as Staff Sergeant in the Army National Guard. I'm sure in Brandon's mind that is another reason to kill Dean. In the end, Brandon failed. He failed because he picked the wrong guy that day. He also failed because he didn't have the intestinal fortitude to confront Dean like a man, rather than confront him like a coward. If I was king for a day, I would assure Brandon would never know what it's like to breathe fresh air, nor walk as a free man. Never be able to know what it's like to be a father and have your son's life threatened by a coward. Free men obey laws, respect fellow humans, and settle disputes like men rather than cowards. Brandon deserves zero compassion and should serve the rest of his life behind bars. Dean Jr., on the other hand, needs to be able to enjoy the rest of his life with his amazing wife and kids, knowing that Brandon will never be a threat to him, his family, or any other person on this planet. Dean did not choose Brandon's actions that day, Brandon did. Life is all about choices, and Dean chose to live, and Brandon chose to be alone and incarcerated the rest of his life. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr.
And we also have Lieutenant Ralph from the State Patrol who wanted to address the
Your Honor, Dustin Brown, Lieutenant of the State Patrol. I serve as a lieutenant in the East region of the Washington State Patrol in our Yakima District. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. I'm here to share, on behalf of the Washington State Patrol and law enforcement community, the impact this incident has had, not only on Trooper Dean Atkinson and his family, but on officers, their loved ones, and the broader community across our state and country. In September of 2022, Trooper Atkinson was performing the ordinary duties of his profession, conducting routine patrol activities when he was ambushed and shot in the face and hand. Trooper Atkinson was performing his duty and attempting to enforce a minor traffic infraction. He was not engaged in a violent confrontation or a cinematic gun battle. The suspect set out with the intent to kill or harm a law enforcement officer, and Trooper Atkinson happened to be the one who crossed his path that day. This act of violence serves as a painful reminder of the very real dangers that law enforcement officers face every single day. Officers know that risk is inherent in their profession, yet they still choose to put on the uniform to protect others and to uphold the rule of law. Events like this underscore a sobering truth. An officer can be targeted at any moment, not just during what might be traditionally seen as dangerous calls. The impact of this shooting reaches far beyond the physical injuries sustained. It ripples through the law enforcement community, officers, dispatchers, supervisors, and support staff alike. It weighs on their minds as they report for duty, and it lingers in their homes long after their shifts end. Many question their safety, their futures, and even their place in this profession. Families and friends who once took pride in the work their loved ones do now live with a heightened sense of fear and uncertainty, wondering whether those they care about will come home each night. The emotional toll is profound. Incidents like this often result in serious post-traumatic stress injuries, not only for the officer directly involved, but those who respond to the scene, investigate the crime, and stand beside their fellow officer in its recovery. These invisible wounds can take years to heal if they heal at all. Law enforcement is a cornerstone of every community and of the rule of law itself. For our communities to remain safe and just, it is essential that those who serve are confident the same system they uphold will also protect them. When a law enforcement officer is violently assaulted in the line of duty, it sends a shockwave through our profession. Officers need to know that justice will prevail and that the rule of law extends to them as well. It is equally critical for the public to see that justice is served in these cases. Our communities must be assured that those who commit violence against those who protect them will be held accountable. This is not about retribution. It is about maintaining faith in the fairness and the strength of our justice system. Trooper Atkinson's courage, his resilience, and his continued service despite the unimaginable adversity are a testament to his character and to values that he upholds as Washington State Trooper. His recovery represents the strength of the human spirit, but his experience also reminds us of the fragility of safety and the tremendous cost that comes with protecting it. Your Honor, as you consider sentencing, I would ask that you keep in mind the lasting and far-reaching impact this crime has had, not only on Trooper Atkinson, but on every officer, every family, and every community member who places their trust in those who wear the badge. Justice in this case affirms that the rule of law stands for everyone, including those who risk their lives to defend it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Ms. Carlson-Strong.
So, in preparing for this afternoon, Your Honor, I wanted to just first address, with his permission, a conversation with Brandon earlier, with an understanding of how this afternoon would go. I did inform him that there was a social media post about a rally outside the courthouse beforehand, that the court would be very in control of what takes place in the courthouse, and really this afternoon has not met the worries that we were concerned about. However, Brandon is a very soft-spoken man, and his decision to not speak this afternoon, I think, is reflective of fear more than a lack of remorse. He has given me permission to state some things that he has told me throughout this case. When I was first appointed to Brandon's case, over 1,000 days ago, I can tell you that he is a much changed individual than the person I first met with. He even in the records that the court has, he was concerned from the get-go as to how, whether or not Trooper Atkinson was still alive. He expressed that. That was in the reports that have been put into public record. He, at that time, however, and as the court is aware, it was a part of the public record after evaluation, was committed to Eastern State Hospital. There's also, as part of the public record, Your Honor, three competency restoration time periods ordered for Mr. O'Neill. As the court is also aware, competency is a very low bar. Mr. O'Neill spent over a year at Eastern State Hospital just to restore competency before coming back to Walla Walla to then address the charges on the underlying case. Brandon, when he came back, his entire demeanor changed. And again, we're not putting on public record his diagnoses, the specifics regarding medication and so forth. Those are between me and his doctors. However, with the help, with the mental health help that he did receive at Eastern State Hospital, he was much better able to address reality and address his actions on that day. Things that he has said to me in making the decision to take responsibility on this case are that he is so sorry. That Trooper Atkinson obviously really did not deserve what he did that day. That if he could go back, he would have gotten the help that he has been able to receive now. As the court is aware, he tried to get help with his mental health struggles back starting in 2018, and it just, his attempts at that, I think were not met with what he needed at that point. Those issues progressed to 2022, and the reality that he perceived on that day. Brendan now understands how much he has affected Trooper Atkinson's life. He knows that it's not over for him. He was relieved. He's expressed, and again with his permission, he's expressed seeing him in the courtroom and able to function and go back to work has been a relief, but he also knows that this is not over for him, that this has a lasting effect. It's not something that's really ever going to go away as far as someone who's fully restored, because you still have, the fear, the PTSD that accompanies what took place. I'm going to get into the legal ramifications here because that's why we're here today. But nothing that I say, I hope no one will interpret what I'm saying as in any way because of the lack of respect for the gravity of what happened. It's known by everyone in this courtroom, and it's something that I don't think anyone in the system ever gets over. We see these cases that are profoundly serious every day in this courtroom, in this community, and that's unfortunate. It's every person who comes before you as a victim and a defendant has experienced a lot in life, and none of that is to be diminished by us going into the legal ramifications. Your Honor, pursuant to the SRA and RCW 994-8535 subsection E, the court is aware that one of the mitigating factors that the court can consider, and again, we're not asking for below the standard range. This is a plea agreement to a standard range sentence, but mental health conditions are a mitigating factor for the court to consider. Spending over a year at Eastern State Hospital just to restore competency, the court is very aware of Mr. O'Neill's mental health struggles, and we do ask the court to take that into account in determining the proper sentence in this case. I do also have to address the pre-sentence investigation report. They reported just incorrect results in this case. They are stating that their recommendation is a sentence above the standard range due to aggravating factors. That is not the law in this case. The aggravating factors were removed pursuant to the plea agreement. Mr. O'Neill pled to count one without the aggravating factor, and so he has the standard range sentences set forth in the judgment sentence form, plus the 60-month firearm enhancement. Due to the mitigating factor, Your Honor, we are asking for that to be the low end of that standard range. 47 and a half months in DOC. Brandon has over 1,000 days credit towards that sentence at this time. And again, Your Honor, much of that was spent again at the State Hospital. Going over his range, Your Honor, with this plea agreement, he is no longer looking at a sentence of that standard range to life. It is as reflected in the judgment in this case. Brandon has also expressed that going forward, it's a relief when someone in the condition he was in at the time that he committed this act gets help, and the kind of help he received in Eastern State Hospital, and he has expressed that he intends to continue within the DOC to follow the programming that he received there, and that's what I expect from him. There is, again, getting to the legal issue, there's a tremendous amount of restitution in this case. This tribunal has been found indigent, so there are no court fines. Realistically, I don't see how we can say he's going to pay back over $200,000 in restitution. What I would ask, Your Honor, is that when he is released, because we have to address this, that payments be set at $50 per month. These are L&I, and so L&I per statute are not waivable. And as far as restitution or to an independent insurance company, indigent clients no longer pay insurance companies per statute. However, L&I is not waivable. The court in this case has the discretion of about 4 years within that standard range. With this plea agreement, Brandon does understand that he is going to be in DOC custody for a very long time. At his change of plea, he did read his guilty plea statement, which doesn't often happen with clients. Oftentimes the attorneys read it or the judge reads it. He did that as his way of expressing taking responsibility for this case. We were on track for a trial looking at the issues of insanity and diminished capacity. However, we pivoted when the state made an offer that we could look at shortly before trial. And Brandon's thoughtful but pretty quick decision was to take responsibility and plead guilty. Certainly at trial with the psychiatrist, with Dr. Page's experience and longevity in handling matters such as this, that would have, insanity and diminished capacity were very much an issue. If I can help on this. Your Honor, I apologize, I just want to make sure there's nothing else that wants to mention. Brandon is ready to receive his sentence, Your Honor, and we ask that you take into consideration the issues that we addressed.
Thank you, Ms. Carlson-Strong. Counsel.
Your Honor, on behalf of the state, I want to make some observations. Regardless of any argument regarding the defendant's competency and state of mind at the beginning of the case, the fact is that at trial, the evidence would have shown that the defendant did have a criminal plan and executed it because it was in writing. Unfortunately for Trooper Atkinson, it was not a fatal execution. Secondly, this is not a case where in some cases there's an assault with an injury that is maybe not necessarily easily healed, but is healed and what goes on, not necessarily forgetting about it, but it's not an hindrance. In this case, it's not that way. The defendant impacted Trooper Atkinson's life permanently, both physically and emotionally. And as Dean Atkinson Jr. stated, he lost parts of 2 fingers. He has scars in his face. He still would have difficulty with facial movements, chewing. I think his wife spoke to that. It took some time for him to be able to even eat normally. And then to be able to go back to work as a trooper, which I was really astonished that he was able to do that. But it took some time. He had to learn how to use his hands because of the loss of the 2 fingers. It continues to affect him, not just his job, but other activities. And some people, and I'm not saying that because I don't know, I don't believe that Trooper Atkinson is a vain person, but anytime that you suffer scarring, particularly on your face or something that's visible like in his fingers, that it does attract sometimes I would say that it attracts things that maybe you don't necessarily are looking for. It's a distraction for people. It can have an effect on one's self-image and how others view you with those physical changes. And that doesn't even talk about the emotional effect, and Trooper Atkinson spoke to that, the nightmares and quite frankly the PTSD that one would get from that, having to go back to that street and on his patrol, and one might wonder to themselves, does Trooper Atkinson patrol down the street anymore in front of the cinema because of what memories one would have going down that road. So there's the physical and emotional effects on him. But the defendant also impacted the lives of other people who were there. There was at least a half a dozen women who witnessed this assault on Trooper Atkinson, and they have to live with that. And the state, preparing for trial, interviewed each of them, and one of them we had to take a break because with the first question she broke down crying, having to relive this 2.5 years later after the event. And they did not want to testify. Most of them did not want to speak with the Department of Corrections officer who was preparing the PSI because of their fear regarding what had happened, what had taken place. The victim in this case and the witnesses reviewed it and will have lasting impressions on their mind, did nothing wrong. And here, according to the execution note that was made, only law enforcement and or landlords were the specified targets, but again, none of them did anything wrong. And the purported reason for the shooting is because he was getting evicted. And that's an unfortunate event. But the fact is that that does happen. But fortunately, the majority of people who do get evicted, face eviction, don't do what Mr. O'Neill did. They can seek help, and most of them are able to find help in some fashion. There are legal ways to remedy their problems. The state asks for and believes that the top end of the range is appropriate and called for in this case based on the remarks already stated. But I also want to point out, it has been mentioned that this guilty plea sentencing was a result of a plea negotiation. At the tail end, the state did agree to allow one of the charges, assault in first degree, to be dropped, along with 2 minor felonies to be dropped, and as well as the firearm enhancement on the looting charge, which would have added time to Mr. O'Neill's sentence. And so the state believes that the court can and should take that into account as well, that it's not just these 2 charges that he pled guilty to, one enhancement, that's all that happened in this case. I don't have anything further. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Acosta. It has been 3 years, 1 month, and 8 days of the underlying events that bring us together today. It is frequently said that the wheels of justice turn slowly, and that is true. But our system is the best in the world, and it protects the rights of the accused. It did so here. We had multiple delays, allowing Mr. O'Neill to have his own expert witnesses and undergo further evaluations. Mr. O'Neill is no longer accused. He has entered a plea of guilty. The court has reviewed the pre-sentence investigation report, which included statements from some of the witnesses, statements from Trooper Atkinson, his father, and his wife. Listened to those statements today. The court read the letters from Mr. Nathan O'Neill, Mr. Justin O'Neill. The court listened to Ms. Kennedy and Lieutenant Trout. The impact on Trooper Atkinson and his family cannot be overstated. RCW 994A-010 provides the court with factors to consider when imposing a sentence. The court has reviewed those factors and applied them to its decision. Some of those factors warrant discussion. Number 1, ensure that the punishment for a criminal offense is proportionate to the seriousness of the offense and the offender's criminal history. Mr. O'Neill has no felony criminal history. His misdemeanor history is driving-related offenses and very old. He has entered a guilty plea to attempted murder in the first degree while armed with a deadly weapon. That this charge was attempted is a miracle, and it is only by the grace of God and Trooper Atkinson's quick wit that he is alive today. The miraculous survival of Trooper Atkinson does not lessen the seriousness of Mr. O'Neill's actions. Mr. O'Neill's flight from the scene shows his mental state. He knew what he did was wrong. It also necessarily risked the lives of members of the community and other law enforcement officers and first responders. Factor 2, promote respect for the law by providing punishment which is just. Some would argue that the law is not able to provide a punishment that is just in these circumstances, that imposing a standard range sentence is inadequate. Our society is built on respect for the law. The notion that the law applies equally to everyone, equally to the rich and equally to the poor, equally to those people in positions of power and those people who are not. Promoting respect for the law and imposing a just sentence requires a lengthy term of confinement. Factor 3, be commensurate with the punishment imposed on others committing similar offenses. A standard range sentence will, by its definition, be commensurate with the punishment imposed on others for similar offenses. Number 4, protect the public. Mr. O'Neill left a sign proclaiming there was a bomb in the apartment from which he was being evicted. Evictions are traumatic, no doubt. Sadly, many people are evicted. Fortunately, Mr. O'Neill's response is the exception and not the rule. Mr. O'Neill's sign was correct. There was a bomb in the community, and it was him. His inability to control his emotions and his choice to lash out with deadly violence towards Trooper Atkinson and the Walla Walla community as a whole. Protecting the public requires a lengthy sentence of confinement. Factor 5, offer the offender an opportunity to improve himself or herself. Despite being in custody since the day this happened, Mr. O'Neill has not before today made an effort to take responsibility for his actions or to improve himself. The court hopes this will change once he is committed to the custody of the Department of Corrections, and I hope Ms. Carlson's job is correct and that his desire to continue mental health counseling is sincere. Factor 6, make frugal use of the state's and local government's resources. The court does not believe this factor meaningfully applies to this case. Number 7, reduce the risk of reoffending by offenders in the community. Mr. O'Neill was a ticking time bomb of paranoia and violence. It is the court's hope that he will engage in mental health services during his period of incarceration. The court believes that reducing the risk of reoffending requires a lengthy sentence. Mr. O'Neill's counsel argues that the court should consider mitigating factors when imposing sentence, specifically RCW 994A 535 subpart E, which states the defendant's capacity to appreciate the wrongfulness of his or her conduct or to conform his or her conduct to the requirements of the law. Comments and concerns regarding the pre-sentence investigation report. We are here for a standard range sentence. Second, the court has considered this argument. The evidence plainly shows that Mr. O'Neill knew what he was doing. He had a plan and attempted to carry out that plan. While one could conclude that his actions demonstrate severe mental illness and that no rational person would do what he did, the law is clear on both sanity and capacity. Many members of our society suffer trauma. Many people have struggled with substance abuse in their past. Many people suffer with various degrees of mental health issues. None of these even remotely excuse Mr. O'Neill's egregious behavior on September 22nd, 2022, nor the weeks leading up to his eviction. Legally, those issues are not before the court. Mr. O'Neill was found to be competent, and he changed his plea knowingly and intelligently to receive the benefit of the state's offer, which included dismissal of 3 counts and a standard range sentence with no sentencing aggravators. Mr. O'Neill changed his plea knowing that the effective standard range with the enhancement on the attempted murder charge is 247.5 to 309.75 months, and did so knowing that the court would have discretion of approximately 5 years within the standard range. Applying the principles of the Sentencing Reform Act and exercising its discretion within the standard range, the court believes that a sentence at the high end of the range is appropriate and will therefore impose a sentence of 309.75 months on count 1. The court imposes 90 days on count 3 to run concurrently. And we'll go over the judgment and sentence document. Based on Mr. O'Neill's guilty plea on September 2nd, 2025 to count 1, attempted murder in the first degree while armed with a firearm, and count 3, attempting to elude a pursuing police vehicle. The court finds that Mr. O'Neill used a firearm in the commission of count 1. The court finds that count 3 is a charge in which Mr. O'Neill used a motor vehicle. Again, the standard range is 187.5 to 249.75 months on count 1 with a mandatory 60-month enhancement. The range is 247.5 to 309.75 in total, with 36 months of community custody. On count 3, the standard range is 0 to 90 days with no enhancement. The court does find that Mr. O'Neill is indigent for purposes of legal financial obligations. The court will require Mr. O'Neill to be on the felony firearm offender registration. The court is dismissing, pursuant to the plea agreement, counts 2, 4, and 5. The court imposes 309.75 months on count 1, that includes the 60-month enhancement, and 90 days on count 3 to run concurrent. Mr. Mr. O'Neill will receive credit for time served. Do we have that calculation, Sergeant?
1,134 days.
Thank you, Sergeant. I've written that in and initialed it. During the 36 months of community custody, Mr. O'Neill will be on mandatory conditions. Do you have any questions about those conditions, Mr. O'Neill? The court is prohibiting Mr. O'Neill from having any contact, direct or indirect, with Trooper Atkinson. The court is imposing the restitution amount of $264,387.45. I do understand your argument, Ms. Felsenstraub, concerning whether that's going to be practical. The court has two choices when setting payments. One is to mandate an amount, the other is to allow the schedule to be established by the Department of Corrections. The court chooses that, so I'm not going to put an amount in. There will be mechanisms for Mr. O'Neill concerning that restitution amount in the future. The court is waiving interest on the restitution given Mr. O'Neill's indigency. Mr. O'Neill will be required to submit to a DNA test. A no contact provision with Trooper Atkinson is for life. The court is imposing the felony firearm offender registration, and the Department of Licensing will be notified concerning count 3. Do you have any questions about the judgment and sentence, Mr. O'Neill?
No.
For the record, the court is signing the same. The court is also signing Appendix 5.6. That is the felony firearm offender notice. Do you have any questions about that document, Mr. O'Neill?
No.